All right, in this video, we're going to talk about prioritizing your standards. And basically, what that means is looking at your standards and determining which ones are more important than the others. And I know we have a tendency to think that everything we do is important, and I agree that that is probably true, but there are certain things that are much more important than others. Maybe I'll do that for later. So that's the idea here is we're going to be kind of prioritizing, making a list of prioritized standards. What this does is it gives struggling students in particular, something to focus on. And so sometimes if you're struggling and you're really having a hard time getting content figured out, it just seems too overwhelming. There's so much to learn. So by prioritizing, you can say these are the 8 concepts you gotta know. So focus on those only. If you get all those done, then we can look at some other ones, but that's kind of like making sure that students really understand those particular concepts. And then if you prioritize your standards and in your grading, you make it so that if a student understands all of the prioritized standards, if they've demonstrated learning on all the prioritized standards, then they can pass your class. Maybe it's just a C, but they can pass it with just those prioritized ones, not an average of all the standards, less important and more important, but just the prioritized ones. And so how do you do it? Well, first thing you got to do is you got to identify that content, right? And that takes a little while. And the idea here is, I'll give you an example. In science, one of the most important concepts that I want my 6th grade students to know is the particle nature of matter. To kind of understand that the world, everything in the world is made up of these little particles we call atoms and molecules. And so by telling the students that that is a key concept for you to understand, then they know that they need to focus on that part of it. And there may be other things out there, like weathering and erosion, super important, but it's not as important to particle nature of matter, because that particle nature of matter concept shows up in almost every unit that we do in middle school. And so I know that they've got to have that one solid in order to be successful in basically a weather unit later on, and even earth science units, things like that. It's going to come up again and again. So those are the must-do units or concepts. Make sure that your students understand. Then you have your list of important but not essential. Right, so you're going to have these concepts are like, yes, they're definitely important, and if you're a well-rounded science student, you will definitely know these, but they aren't going to make or break you in the next unit. It might make it a little bit harder for you, but you can maybe learn it again later and get that concept and still be able to be successful. So those are your should do's. So everybody must do the first ones to pass the course. You should do these, and then there's going to be content that you really hope they learn. But if they don't, they're not. It's not going to hurt them at all. Like really, they're going to be fine in the future. It's awesome if they do learn it though. So those are your aspire to do's. And so sometimes I'll break it down as if you can do all the must do's, that's a C. If you can do all the must do's and should do's, that's a B. Do the must, should, and aspires, that's an A. But of course, you can kind of modify that to fit for what you need it for or what it could work for you. Pushback. So all my content is important. Of course it is. I know that's why you've delved into it in your own studies and you love it and you think it's all super important. But the reality is it's not all as important as the others. And as in my own opinion, I'll just put my little opinion hat here. If I'm a language arts teacher, conventions are important, but they're not as important as understanding how to convey a message. So in the world, in the real life, quote unquote real life, students will need to be able to express their thinking and their ideas to others so they can understand it. Conventions need to be good enough that spell check can catch it and that the grammar check can catch it. But Grammarly is getting better all the time. And so those conventions are becoming less and less important as time goes on. Opinion. I know I'm probably going to really upset some language arts teachers. And then it sounds like a lot of work, and it can be. Especially if you don't know what the concepts are later on in the unit or the year or even in further grades. If you're a middle school teacher and you don't really understand what the high school teachers are doing, or if you're a 6th grade teacher, you don't really know what the 7th or 8th grade teachers are doing, then it is a lot of work. You got to talk to people and you got to figure out what's important. So that's prioritizing your standards. I strongly recommend you consider doing that, even if you don't tie it to a grade, just letting students know that this is the most important standards. I think that's got a lot of value to it. Good luck, and let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you in the next video.